This is actually my first live for the new year, and I'm beyond excited. And I'm generally relatively optimistic in this crazy world that we live in the world of venture. But I'm actually more excited this time than I've been in a hell of a long time. And there's like tons of reasons for this. But before I go into it, and before I bring on our guest today, who is an entrepreneur that we invested in a couple of years back and is absolutely crushing it right now, I actually predict this will be one of the most impactful and valuable companies out of India in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm going to go that big, but you're going to find out like how he did this and how he built this right now. But the program is going to be 3 parts. The first one, very, very short. I'm just going to talk about like stuff you got to do. You got no choice. It's a brand new year. We're going to just like dig into this a little bit. And I welcome any comments, as always, from folks that are around. The second part is to start talking about the things, not so much what you have to do to line up, but the opportunities that are in the market. And then I'm going to bring in Vipul, and we're going to talk about this. And we're going to talk about this from a founder's perspective, and especially from a founder's perspective who is raising money without a huge amount of difficulty and who is growing revenue and growth without a huge amount of difficulty. But first of all, what have you got to do? You got to build, and you got to build big this year. And you have no choice. And it's 2025, and we've had 2 or 3 years of really mediocre, weird years in venture, where startups have had difficulty growing, VCs have had difficulty growing, the economy has had difficulty growing, everything has been really hard. And now 2025 is the year, and it is the perfect year, which I'm going to go into in a second. But what have you got to do? You got to work your way backwards. And I'm thinking of like tattooing this on my forehead. It's just math. It's all just math, right? It's about how much revenue do you have to have? How many people do you need paying for whatever product you have to be able to achieve that revenue? How long is it going to take to that stage? And what growth loop can you build for a product that people want? Remember, if they don't want our product, there's nothing we can do. But if you don't build the math, you're not going to get there. If you just woke up this side of the year and you're like, hey, I'm going to lose weight, no specificity. I'm going to be better at home or with my girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, kids, family, no specificity. I'm going to have a greater business. My business is going to be successful. I'm going to raise a Series A or a seed round, no specificity. You're dead. Unless you're lucky, but just lucky is not a great strategy, right? Our hope is not a great strategy rather than lucky. But just specificity. So at the beginning of this year, you work out where you're going to be at the end of the year, and you work out how that ties up into getting to your next round. And I mean major round. I'm not talking about getting to a pre-seed or a seed. I'm talking to an A round or a B round or a C round or a D round. Like, what is it you have to do? And then when you do that and you work your way back with math, I want you to add an extra layer onto it. Think of this as a cake that you're going to have on your birthday, right? The base layer is just the sponge. What I just told you is just the sponge in the cake. There's like literally nothing there that's going to help you get there. It is just going to help you avoid being dumb about not getting there. The next little piece in the middle, which is all that, like before you have the 2 sponges together, you have all of that nice strawberry or raspberry or a little bit of cream in the center. That piece is you need to throw a turbo in there. And I'm even talking like, even as that piece is your product fit. You got to work like crazy on your product fit. Some of you are going to say you got your product fit. Others of you are going to say you haven't quite got your product fit. You got to get your product fit, which is that strawberry and that cream and everything in the center of the 2 sponges. That product fit has got to get out there. And then the piece on top, before we go too crazy on this, you got to be bold this year. And that means you got to do stuff that you would not normally have done. This is not about linear growth like this. This is about, it's like a stairs, whereby there's periods of going like this. And you got to do crazy stuff. And at the dojo, we're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. We're doing books, we're doing TV shows, we're doing domes, we're launching new programs. If I worked 15 hours a day before, I'm going to work 20 hours a day right now. Got to be bold. You got to go crazy. You got to do epic productions to support domain dominance, period. There is no excuse. Okay, I'm done. Hey, okay, I just want to add one other thing, and I want to bring in Vipul, which is the second point about why this is so important. People are hurting. And when people are hurting, when people are weak, that is the time when you have to break through. VCs have had no exits in years and years and years and years. The larger competitors that you have out there have not had the liquidity that they have been spoiled and used to over the last 3 to 5 years. None of that stuff is around. And you got to take advantage of that. If the only thing you're going to do is you're going to sit there polite and nice and say, hey, this is a lovely market. Everybody deserves a chance. We're just going to break our way through nice and gently. Then who knows? If you have a great product, you might do okay. But you ain't exactly entering it with the attitude of being able to build out a unicorn. And look, hardly anybody does this unicorns thing. Hardly anybody can build $1 billion company. Hardly anyone builds a decacorn, which is a $10 billion company. And hardly anybody gets to like whatever 100 billion or $1 trillion. If you want to get there, you got to do crazy stuff, right? And that means you got to go for these big things. You got to go for domain domination. It can't just be I sold this month, I sold next month. Okay, you get the idea. I'm going to bring in the master. I was going to say the master of disaster, but that would be like a boxing thing. I want to bring up the master of greatness, the master of math, the master of growth, and the master of all things entertainment in India and actually in the United States. This man is going to be brilliant. So let me add a bit of context, and then I want to say hi. I had the great pleasure of investing like 3.5 years ago, and I invested in the first iteration of the product fit that we were looking at. Remember, for all of us, product fit is about one thing and one thing only. It's about listening. Or maybe it's about executing after we listen. But if we don't listen, there's no point in executing because we're just like running around in circles trying to chase our tail, right? And so when I first invested in the company, I loved him. I loved his team. I loved what they were building. I saw like a huge problem in the influence stroke entertainment space that they were solving. And I saw him and his team having the ability to be able to fix it. And then he just did that one thing. He just listened to what people were telling him. He built up the revenue, got investment from people because he comes across really well, and then built better and better and better and better and better in product. And so I love that today we're going to talk about growth and we're going to talk about lovable product, because lovable product is not building the thing we can sell. Lovable product is building the thing that forces emotion, that makes you feel, that makes the consumer care about this thing so damn much that they don't even know what to do. And I'll give a bit of context. I watched Gladiator 2 last night. Now, I am absolutely the ideal customer profile for a gladiator movie. Like, I'm the man. I'm the guy that you put this thing in front of. Loads of people swashbuckling, swords, wars, armies, all that kind of stuff in pretend, right? I'm that guy. But I didn't like it. Why didn't I like it? Because the product wasn't lovable. They didn't emotionally make me feel. Doesn't mean it was a bad movie. It just meant that lovable product was not loved by me. And that's your bar. Your bar is when somebody is watching your epic, incredible movie that was probably one of the most expensive movies of the year to build, with some of the greatest special effects, some of the best actors in the movie. You gotta make them walk away from your product and say, wow, that was something that made me feel. Okay, I'm done. Vipul, good to see you, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Happy New Year to start with. How are
Happy
you?
New Year to you. How do I sound? I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm great, and I love that every time I speak to you, you're doing better and better and better, and like all this stuff we're talking about. Even though I say a lot of it tongue in cheek, it's like I'm also deathly serious about it, because I know every single founder is in like a life and death struggle, and probably this year coming is going to be the greatest delta between absolute life and absolute death. And the stuff that like I'm speaking to is in your DNA, and I know it in my soul. It will get people through. So yeah, I'm great, man. I'm like so looking forward to this year, and I know you are too.
Yeah. One, just like always, like whenever I talk to you, I feel a heavy competition. One, it's your morning, it's my evening, and then it's very hard to match energies even at the peak time. I'll try to be as loud, as energetic as possible. But yeah, no, this year for sure gonna be amazing. I think we all have passed through the last couple of years of the phases, where everyone has seen the ups and downs. I think 2025 should be all about the growth, and how fast and how far you can go this year is what gonna makes a lot of difference.
I agree. Do you mind giving a little bit of an intro on Mugafi, and talk a little bit about the journey that got you to where you are right
Yeah, it's gonna be long time taking.
now?
No, so Mugafi, the name comes pretty easy, like it's a music game film, and that defines what we do. We are a entertainment tech company. I think one good and bad about me is that I see what's gonna work out 10 year down the line, and that makes me start things early, which have its own drawbacks, but at the same time have its own advantage. And that's what happened with us. We started in entertainment back in 2020 when entertainment was not even a thing to talk about. We were doing the cameo model plus Unlu classes, where we had a lot of these people who comes out who learn writing on the platform. But we were very focused that we want to do things, so we want to teach things that's gonna help people make some money in long term. So we didn't divert it much. We stuck in entertainment, focused on writing, a couple of more things like singing and acting. And over the time, how the company have grown is that our goal was to identify how can you do or acquire a customer which can not give you 100 rupee or $1 or $5, but how can you just gonna increase the LTV of a customer, right? If you're gonna have one artist on the platform, is it possible for you to help them or make them make $1 million revenue for the company? And that was the idea initially. So and that idea was always an exploratory idea, right? You can't learn it on day one, you have to learn it as you go. So we started with these three categories, and we identified writing as a big gap where people do not know what to do with the IPs. People do not know what the IPs are actually. They were selling their ideas at cheap cost, like dirt cheap, like $10 or $5, but the ideas are insanely costly enough. So we thought, how can we help them further? So from there on, we started building these AI models, bring all those writers to write on our platform. We identified that these writers who had the amazing idea do not know how to convert that idea into a gameplay, screenplay, novel, books, etc. So we thought, can we make that a platform which takes your idea and converts your idea into a product which can be sold at a higher cost. And today we know that we have sold some of these product at $100,000, some of the product at $10,000. So from a writer paying me a $1 to join my classes back then, today those writers makes around $100,000 on an average from their IP. So that's a growth that we have. And even now, when someone asks me, what do I say is that 5 year down the line, my goal is to identify those 10 IPs which gonna make you a $10 billion, and that's how I'm gonna reach to $100 billion top line. So can you get a $10 billion IPs, like can you get a 10 Pokemons from the platform? And that's where we are heading. That's how the journey of Mugafi looked like and going to look like in future.
Yeah, and what I love about the journey and how you built out the journey is that I talk about, oh, you just have to listen and you have to execute. Well, it's very basic. Like, it's way more than that. And the challenge most of us entrepreneurs have is our arrogance, right? We come to market. I come to market with an accelerator, and I'm like, all accelerators are broken. We have the greatest accelerator. Well, it's not true, right? Because that's not validated, and it's not, but it's how we feel, right? I have the greatest widget. I have the greatest skincare. I have the greatest AI, but it's not true, right? And so that arrogance generally is the thing that stops us from building truly beautiful things, which are really needed. And to be able to get past that arrogance and get to a place of, this thing that I'm doing here right now has got one objective and one objective only. It's like a market research study stroke project. That's what it is, right? And if we look at it like this, and we really, really, really look at how the customer is engaging it and what they like it and where it is and how quickly it ties to growth, to your point, and how much money that you get from it, then what happens is you really start dealing with it as a math algorithm, which I know is like your speciality. And you start to iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate. And I remember when you first came in and you're like, Brian, we have this influencer platform, but it's going to be a great influencer platform because it's in India and we have the top people in India, which you did. You had like top cricketer in India who's like a demigod over there. You had the top author in India. You had like so many incredible people on the platform. And the idea was like build out a masterclass of sorts at that time, which you did brilliantly. But because you're very humble and because you were listening to what the customer was saying, you were hearing this isn't going to drive enough revenue through, and we're never going to be able to hit the metrics of ROI against where we are. And we can either not listen, which is what Masterclass did, and continue to pay more and more and more and more and more and get more diminishing returns, or we can adapt. And so you said, okay, what does adapt look like? Well, adapt looks like, how about we create classes to help these people become the great author of tomorrow? And now you've taken it to that next level of saying, well, why couldn't one of our students write the next Gladiator movie with help from some of the greatest AI agents in the world? So you're using the top technology that's being built. You're using a crowdsourced group of people who desperately want this. You're building a base of revenue that's coming through as people are paying to learn. And then the IP, which is really everything else, is the Trojan horse to get there. But the IP is what then becomes owned by you and by these people. And so really you change the entire face of entertainment. Like, it's tremendously exciting.
Yeah. That's the whole idea. And I'm a big believer of, I think in the world of AI, for the next 5-10 years, the companies who are gonna own most are the one who are gonna do most. So I believe that the most number of IPs you can own gonna define that how big the company is going to be. And yeah, that's the philosophy we are going through right
It's real estate, right?
now. Yeah.
It's location, location, location. It's no different than physical real estate. Whatever defensibility that we have in the form of the things that we own. For some of you startups that are coming through, or some investors who are listening who have got doing investments in startups, sometimes that's just some proprietary technology that you have. But to Vipul's point, unless you continue to grow and grow and grow and grow that, it's just a question of time before somebody comes in and takes that away, or that thing becomes fairly irrelevant. So yeah, very powerful. And just take this, if this is the first lesson for everyone today to go into 2025, it's that if you truly want to build transformative product, which can become a $1 trillion company, which I believe Vipul's company can, then you have to look at it from a humility of trying to deal with something that you're listening to the customer on a massive level until you get that aha. And when you get that aha, that's when you dominate hugely. And I want to talk about growth tactics, because this stream appeals to two types of people. The first one is investors who are looking for great startups that are breaking through right now, which I don't even know if you have any investment opportunities because you're so oversubscribed in your rounds. But the second one is founders that are listening to the show and are thinking, I want some help. I want some thoughts. Let me hear from the folks who are like crushing it and really killing it. And that's you. And even from the very early days, the reason that you were able to iterate so well and you were able to build better and better and better product was because you were massively focused on trying to find a growth loop from the very beginning. Right at the start, you're like, I want to find my scalable and repeatable growth loop that's going to be able to bust through on like a huge level. Can you talk about some of the things you did initially when you had Unlu and how you've evolved your sales strategy over the years to what you're doing right now and what you feel might be working in 2025? And let's talk about that.
Yeah, so a couple of legs that we have. One is obviously the consumer legs where all the writers comes and use the platform today. The other that you have is a producer, studio, or a business leg, right, where a lot of business comes and use the platform. And it's always a chicken and egg problem, right? If you do not find a great studios who are going to buy the stories, how are you going to find the new writers who are going to come on the platforms who might are coming today, or at least the first course to sell the stories to someone, right? So, and we were trying to crack in a lot of ways, but beyond performance marketing, I think what really works today, and I think with the most underrated philosophy, is two. One is building a brand, and building a brand have a obviously it's a very wide thing, but you build a brand depending on where you are, which segment you are in. And second, I think a lot of brand building happens through the multiple partnerships that you can do, right? So what you have to find is a win-win with the partners that you have in the market. So let's say we are in a school of teaching of writing, for example, right, where we have a tool where a lot of writers comes and teach well. So what you have to do is identify the places where these writers goes today, and these could be writing communities, these could be writing colleges, and find and do something with them, which gonna be beneficial for those people. Those people means partners, and combined result should be the beneficial for the writers also. And all these things help you do two things. which I spoke in the beginning. One is help you build the credibility, hence the brand. And second, it reduce the CACs drastically and let you at least identify or test the product on the initial phase of product without paying much for the performance marketing or getting stuck in the loop. Even till date today, like we don't say that we have really cracked how the performance marketing worked, but what we are cracking parallelly is that how the brand building works, how at least you got to identify the right partner to come across, who can vouch for you, who can become the credibility for you. So tomorrow when someone talks about you, they know that you are not a standalone brand who just came today, but you are the person who is backed by all the top studios in the market, all the top colleges in the market, or partnered with all those people. So I now look at you from a different lens. I don't look at you as a startup who do not know what gonna do, but I look at you from a serious company who have all the great partners outside. And this I'm like I keep saying from day one, like the one thing that you have to focus on is to get the right partners on board and make sure that you're doing a great work with them, and everything else
How do
happens.
you do that? By the way, I love that you started with brand. I feel a little bit Chinese here when I'm saying this is the year of the brand, right? Not the year of the dog, not the year of the cat or the scorpion. This is the year of the brand.
Yeah.
Great brands are going to absolutely dominate this year, but great brands are not just pretty pictures and nice words and good logos and stuff. But great brands are the most aggressive. Sometimes they're not seemingly aggressive, but they are aggressive. They don't go out there on their own. And so I do want to really go for partnerships. But when we talk about brand, how do you see? I mean, for me, building a great brand is going to be like hyper aggressive this year, where we're going to like do stuff on a live streaming show, which I desperately want to get you onto. We're going to do stuff with a book. We're going to do a bunch of other things as well. How do you see building a brand? Like, how do you do that for Mugafi?
See, like for me, if you ask me, I don't come from an entertainment background, right? There's no background that I carry where I say that I know all these producers or I know all the celebrities, so it's easy for me to go out and just knock the door and bring them on board. Uh, so what I had to do is that before starting Mugafi, I had to spend like years and years to be helpful for the people around. To be someone whom these people can rely on. And then even after Mugafi, I think first 2 3 years when we kind of identified the market is pretty slow and we are still in the phase of figuring out what product gonna work out and what the writer gonna like and the AI platform that gonna take its own time to build on. You can do two things. You can wait for the product to go out live, and this I say that whenever like between a time you think a product to the time that you have launched the product, there is a sufficient time that goes out in which you have two options. One is that you keep waiting for the product to go out live and then take some action, or you start knocking all the doors and at least telling them your idea, telling them what you want to do, sharing them as much as possible, and also trying to be helpful for the people around who can be helpful for you tomorrow, right? So it's a skill where you are not going out in the market from a transactional purpose from day one, but you're going out in the market to contribute. And that contribution, once the product comes out live, once my product comes out live, that contribution which I have done in the market gonna reflect back in multiple ways. When people gonna partner back with you, people know what you're gonna do, right? So as a founder, it's your full-time job is that by the time your tech team is building the product, by the time your business team is figuring out the strategy, you're finding the first client, or your marketing team is trying to crack the performance, your job is to go out and sell your stories in a way that people start believing or showing the same vision that you have and start trusting you and backing you with things. And it's not a day one job, right? It's like we are doing a live here. We might have a 20 people coming out today, but we still have to do it. We might have a 20,000 people coming out today, but we still have to do it, right? So irrespective of the number of people, I have to keep doing this process once, twice, thrice without thinking what the result is today, but just expecting that tomorrow out of these 100 people I'm going to contribute in, two of them, three of them going to be a great partnerships for you, which going to take your brand to become a brand. So I think that's hard work which you kind of have to identify for
I
your
love
business.
that. Pay it forward at the beginning. Be very intentional about what you're doing. Make sure that you're engaging with the right people. Everything is about like the 6 degrees of people that are around you, and then making sure that you're building up over time so that you get to a level whereby people actually need you. That's fantastic. And then those partnerships at that stage, they become easier, right? Because you've been highly intentional from the beginning, almost from even before you started the company, to make sure that you know the people that you can start to build a partnership with. So some of them are cold calls, sure, but even the cold calls are people that are connected to people who know who you are.
Yeah. It's just about knowing your right set of people that you want to get into and spreading everywhere in that group, right? And see, the good part is that all the communities, the moment you identify the communities, are very small. You're gonna talk to 10 people about you. Those 10 people are gonna talk to everyone in the community about you. So it's not that hard job, but I think identifying what community you want to get into, putting a right voice of how you want to be known in that community, and then keep doing things and showing that you have the capability of doing things. That's what building the trust. I think these three things gonna define that how well these people gonna know you and what they're gonna know you about for.
I love that. And also, as you're look, I have one extra thing, which is for me. This is just for me. It's definitely not advice to anybody out there. I believe it that you want to. I like causing a controversy is the wrong word, but I like causing a conversation worth having.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
like causing a conversation worth having, like that, and that causation makes life interesting for the people that are listening. Like, and I'll give you a great example. I was speaking at a TechCon years ago, and I was down with a bunch of other accelerators, two of the most one of the most well-known ones in the world, and then a bunch of other ones who are pretty good. And the name of the panel was accelerators, how we're going to build on a great model. And so the first three people started talking, saying, yeah, we're going to do this, and I'm this, and we're the biggest in the world, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, let's be honest. We all do a terrible job. Like, we take way too much equity for way too little value, and it's abysmal, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. And rather than talking about what a great job we do, we should be talking about how we can actually truly support founders in line with the additional equity that's given and the waste of time that we give to them. Can we have that conversation? And so I didn't start that to cause a fight, although I may have, right? But I did definitely start it to have a conversation that would separate me from everybody else. And so it's a little bit like what you're doing as well, Vipul. Like, you're going into the movie space and saying it's been done in a sense, and not just movies, songs, probably games, everything else as well. And you're saying it's being done in a very centralized way, which is a highly inefficient way for years and years and years. So sure, people can go to the Oscars and the Golden Globes, and they can go to all those wonderful places and talk about who's amazing and who's great and who's fantastic. But that's not the real truth. The real truth is this is an inefficient, traditional, old-fashioned model that hasn't changed in over 100 years. And change is coming. And that change is going to be painful for some people, but it is absolutely demanded by the masses. And the public are the ones that you speak to. So you, in your way, you're creating award shows yourself, right? Which takes us to the next level. So build a great product, build a great brand, build great partnerships, but then build your domain expertise, which is what you're doing in the Indian market too, right?
Yeah. No, and that's what it is. Like, it's actually true. Everyone try to be good with you, right? So this is the world of where you meet everyone and they're trying to be good with you. So unless until you are not good but impactful too, you are not gonna get remembered, right? So being good is not good enough. I think being impactful is the key to find people and make them talk to you.
I like that. Being good is not good enough. Yeah, you have to be impactful. Use to Vipul's point there, like, use the gauge for yourself. I just sat on a panel with 4 people. Did anybody remember who I was? Like, did anybody know that I was there? Like, if I go away, what percentage of people? Actually, that's probably not fair, because your mom might be there, and, and your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, your wife, your husband might be there. But like, what percentage of people in the audience come up to you afterwards
Yeah.
because they want to talk to you about the knowledge and what you have to? That's the real bar. And what percentage of people maybe were impacted by what you said? And that should be what you're working on. And you don't want to be an empty vessel, right? You don't want to shout and scream for the point and shout and scream. You have to have something to say, which is of value. But that thing that you have to say of value is really important. What other things are you doing to build out your domain dominance in India right now? You've got the platform, you've got the people, you've got the celebrities, you've got the partners, you've got the brand. Your revenue is growing at a huge click right now. You're in the millions of dollars a month, well into it. Talk to me about like what 2025 looks like, and when you're planning to what I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and you're saying, okay, it's game on. This is the year. Well, first of all, is this the year? Is this the big year to break through? And if it is, what are the things that you're going to do to make that happen? Oh, we may have. And actually, if Vipul looks a little bit frozen there, it's always either Vipul or somebody else, or it's me. I'm going to assume that it's Vipul, and because he's over in India, he's down a little bit. I want to. Let's see if I can get.
Yeah, you're back.
Vipul, did you lose me? Was it me?
Yeah, I lost you for the last like 30 seconds.
Dingity dang. Okay, good. Okay, we're back, which is wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hello.
So I don't know if you heard that, but what I was saying is for 2025, what are the big plans that you have for 2025 that are going to be the things that are going to break you through? And do you think that this is the year?
Yeah, I think we have done enough back-end work now in last 4 5 years. Now, when we started like last quarter, we worked on the whole fact that how 2025 gonna play out. Uh, so, a few things for us which we have aligned for. One is obviously the partnership that we keep doing. We are like getting move ahead on that. We expanded in Saudi. I spent almost a quarter last year in Saudi. We cracked a very, very big deal. We had launched with a joint venture with one of the largest entertainment company in Saudi, or probably Amina, which we're going to announce this month. So that's something which is going to move ahead. But I think two key stars for us is that we have been working a lot on building our own IPs while we are helping the writers to grow and build who they could be. And this year we have a certain target, like we want to have around 200 of our own characters. So we are moving ahead and building our own comics, launching our own comics. So this year is about how many comics we're going to launch. And that's why we set up a comic team in the last quarter. We got the right people in the place. And we started building on that. Second is our Web3, which which we are obviously.
Can I actually just stop you on the comics piece there? Because that's really interesting. I didn't know about the comic side of it. I talk a lot about building epic events to create domain dominance in the space. For us, our epic event was creating a live streaming show this year. I call it a TV show, but it feels like a TV show, but it's a live streaming show. Right? Your epic event, is that first epic event creating the comic? And what's your logic behind creating that comic?
Multiple. So I think one important piece is that all the great products that's been built, there is a certain method behind them. And when I talking about the tech products here, I'm talking about the Pokemons of the world or the Marvels of the world or the DC of the world, and we call it a Marvels method, right? In today's world, we are approaching a lot of these content with making a part one. I lost you again.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Go on, please. We hear you.
Is this? Yeah.
I hear you fine, V.
There's
Keep going.
I don't know how much you heard, but when I talk about the products, I
hear everything. Yeah, keep going, please.
Yeah. So what we are approaching is a Marvel's method. Like today's world, people makes part one first and then think what the part two or part three going to be. And that really harms the part two and part three because, it's not written prior, it's not thought prior, it's not built prior. It's just based because there is a hype around it. You can't build a great product because there's a hype around it. And that's why you kind of get upset when you see the part two and part threes of the great movies today. So when we build it, and what we are building is, I'm a big fan of building a large universes, where everything is so interconnected, and that's where the next big IPs are going to be. And if you look at everyone is hunting for the next Marvels or next Harry Potter in the world now. So comics allows you to make a interconnected IPs on day one, with a lot of expansion, lot of open innovation that can goes around, with a lot of feedback that can come from fan. And the moment you take these things out live, there's a lot of fan channels who are going to keep writing you back that why this character should behave like this, that. So it gives you a very amazing base ground to develop what's your first amazing great character going to be. And then from there on, you want to start building them to convert into a greater IPs, like a film, like a games, like a, animation shows. But the first ground to be hit where the innovations are allowed. And that's why comics is the great place, because the innovations are allowed here. So we have identified three of our larger universe, and we have written a base story on those universe. And this year, like, one of the universe inspired from a lot of Indian Asian mythology, but all happened in New World, and that universe have more than 470 comics into it, right? So you have a large setup before you're gonna go out and identify which of those comics will start as a movie one for you, like which of those comics gonna be an Iron Man for you, and then there is a whole list of Marvel's universe that gonna come out. So that's why comics. Uh, it's another great way of letting the world know that you are building this IP. The character is owned by you. It's another great way of not just writing something, but also start launching to your audience in a cheaper and the faster way. So for a startup, like, who don't want to spend like billions of dollars or millions of dollars to make movies on the day one, this helps at all the ground. And
How
that's why.
interesting. How interesting. And so you're going to build out multiple comics that will allow you to build your, not just your domain dominance, but also your domain authority. And Dilip, mentioned earlier on, how did the growth journey aligned with the dynamic situation? You see how how do you see the future growth journey? What Vipul is saying is, like, he knows what his end point is. His end point is to have the majority of IP for movies and anything entertainment in the Indian continent. Like, that's the end point. So the dynamic changes that he's doing to be able to build. Oh, really? Are you losing me?
I think.
Are you? Oh man, this is a killer.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, buddy. The funny thing is, this is the sad tale of startup. I went to a separate studio today to get better bandwidth, and it kind of sucks. And so look, here's what we're gonna do. I want to take I got great points to bring in from David, and I got great points to bring in from Dilip as well that I want to talk about here, but I don't think everybody can hear me. So, Vipul, what we shall do, my friend, we will redo this. I'll redo this, and we get good bandwidth. Oh, my network is perfect. It's Vipul. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks, Kishle. Okay, fine. It's not me. It's Vipul. Yeah, it's you, buddy. Okay, so listen, here's what we're going to do. We will bring you back in another time. Vipul.
Yeah.
You're okay, buddy. We'll bring you back in another time when you've got a better thing. Thank you, Kishle. Listen, Kishle, a little bit quicker on the point next time would be awesome, but I like it. So here's what we're going to do. Look, I'm going to take Vipul out. I'm going to bring me in, and I'm going to talk about this so everybody can hear it, right? So, number one, I want to go back to Dilip. I have 300 companies that we have invested into. Those companies all take different turns and different ways of looking at stuff. What I'm trying to do with these podcasts is I'm trying to be able to get some type of formularity so you can see the commonality of what they're doing in their own journeys. In all of our journeys, it will all be different, right? We're all going to have to take different turns. Sometimes we'll have problems with our people. Sometimes we'll have problems with our systems. Sometimes we'll have problems with our products. Sometimes we'll have products with our growth. What we know is this: when you're building a business, it is like a business that's going to be highly successful with your customer. It's a little bit trying to get a car engine that works beautifully. You know, when you get in a Tesla and just the thing doesn't sound and it's beautiful and it goes and you're out there. We're trying to get a Tesla engine, and we're trying to get it in 1990. That is the job of an early stage startup. Now, what's the problem with a Tesla engine? Well, If it's not working properly because it's 1990 and we got to find out what's wrong, the only way to do it is to unravel all of the pieces in the engine and take them out until we find out the piece that's not quite working. And sometimes the piece not quite working actually works fine. It just doesn't work with the other piece that happens to be in the engine, but there's no other way to do it. So our job, the job for every single founder, is to find the perfect, lovable product. That is the job. That is what we're trying to do. And so as we're doing that, we work our way towards it. And to find that out, the way we know that we have it is we build a great growth loop. That growth loop is the thing that allows us to be able to break through. So for Vipul's case, he looks at it from the perspective of, first of all, 2025 is the year of the brand. I entirely agree with him. You got to build an incredible brand and you got to be super aggressive about your brand. Number two, you have to build incredible partnerships. Your partnerships are amazingly important because if you're swimming with small fish all of the time and you have nobody large that you're aspiring up to, how do you possibly expect to be able to build a unicorn out? You can't do that. The third point that I'm putting in here that is incredibly important for us this year, and I'm trying to encourage our other founders to do it, is you got to make yourself famous in servitude of your company, right? And that second part is incredibly important. You have to do it in servitude of your company. Now, making yourself famous in the startup world means things like create domain dominance by going through domain authority, by going through domain awareness, domain authority, and then domain dominance. I like doing that by creating epic events. Your epic events might be doing your own Golden Globe, which is in Vipul's perspective. It might be writing a book, which is something that we're going to do to make sure that we get our name out there as well. It might be us expanding into India because we know that will increase our dominance in India. Our building a celebrity fund because we know that will do it as well. Whatever it is for you, be audacious. This is 2025. This is the time to do it. Now, I want to jump over to a great comment that's come over from Mayank, which is, what role does the community play in the creator's growth? For me, it's everything, right? Because for me, brand is community. You can't build brand without building community, but you want to be very careful with this area because the word community is a very fluffy area. I remember back in the early days before Expert Dojo, we built a huge community first, and that community was awesome. We had tens of thousands of people, but we would have these startup events that would have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people coming to 600, 700, 800 people turning up. They didn't pay any money really. They didn't have any monetary value really, and we weren't able to do anything special with them really, but they turned out to be very important for us. I have seen other people building community to the exclusion of everything else, and they have stayed poor for their entire lives. So don't get confused with building community to building a product that your customers love. Folks like Reddit, they nailed the two together, right? Their community will keep them strong forever. Folks like Patagonia, they nailed community. Folks like Ben & Jerry's, they nailed community. But I know so many people who can't make their rent payments at the end of the month that have a huge community who are cheap people who are never going to do anything to create any value for those people. So continually cross-check as to whether that community is adding the value in for you that you want to do. But for me, you kind of back into the community unless it's your way of breaking into the market. But either way, you got to make sure your focus every single day is building a growth loop for a lovable product for customers that will value what you are doing over and above what anybody else is doing. I see David in there, David Layton, great buddy of mine back from the day, built one of the biggest community groups that exist anywhere in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Absolutely phenomenal what he's actually created there. And that group will stay strong for him forever because he nailed the two sides of how do you monetize and make sure that we actually get revenue through from people who desperately care about what we're doing. You just got to do it within time. And I want to finish with a few things here. Look, Vipul, who I just brought on, is coming in with we're wrapping Kishle. Don't worry, I'll bring Vipul back in afterwards. So Vipul is a company that I'm like incredibly proud of because they've done amazing things. They have done the journey on building lovable product in a way that I've never seen done before. They are going to have, I wouldn't bet against them having $5 to $10 million a month in revenue within the next 24 months. I wouldn't bet against them at all. They are continually building epic productions so that they can maintain and build on their domain dominance that they have inside their space. And so very, very, very powerful because he's focused on the end prize. It starts with math. The math always goes into a number. The number is always something which is tied into a thing that's going to get you to your objective. For me, our objective is $1 billion of AUM, assets under management. That's what we care about. We kind of care about IRR, internal rate of return, which is a big VC measurement. But we also know that if we have $1 billion of assets under management, we kind of nailed the IRR in the first place anyway. For you, it should be revenue or it should be engaged users, depending on what your product is. You have to have that number. You have to have it broken down over a 3 to a 5 year period, a 1 year period, a 1 month period, and a 1 day period. Like you literally have to know what today looks like from a success perspective to be able to make sure that you break through. Like that's it. That's all you got to do. And every week I'm going to bring you on another amazing entrepreneur. And every week I just want you to take one thing away. Right? And today you may take away, today I'm going to give you 4 choices or 5 choices to choose from. And actually, before I do this, because this would be my wrap up, David, you brought up about the slicing pie model. Now, I would love if you can share a little bit with that with me. Shoot me over an email with some details about it. It would be amazing. And then I'll bring it up on the next show. I don't know the slicing pie model, but I like the way it sounds. So I'll bring that up on the next show as a great learn that we can bring out for everyone here. But for this show, here's the learns that you have. Either number 1, this is the year of the brand, the year of the brand. And what that means is that it is everything. It is not passive. It is aggressive, aggressive, aggressive. Everybody's got to know, why are you the most important brand that exists in the world? That is why Vipul has Mugafi dominating in India right now. And honestly, with all false humility aside, that is why Expert Dojo are going to dominate in 2025, because our brand will be more loved than the other brands out there. And that will be intentional because we'll take care of our people. Number 2, build great partnerships. Partnerships are everything, and they make things so much easier. It is so hard to go out there and try and build this thing on your own. And to Vipul's point, you do that by paying it forward, by getting engaged, by helping out, by being part of their community. Like, surround yourself with these people. I look at the other accelerators and I don't think we're better or they're better or we're worse or they're enemies or we're enemies. I look at it as we have a joint obligation to support the startup world better. And because of that, I want the people who started the other accelerators to be my friends, because I want all of us to be able to break through together. Number 3, he didn't use the words, but it was implied. You need to build your influence this year personally. And that means surrounding yourself with people who are at a higher level than they were at last year. You don't have to say goodbye to the people last year, but you have to start increasing the level of the people that you're around. You're building a unicorn. You're not building an ice cream stand at the side of your corner school. And that means if you got a unicorn, you got to be looking at people who are at that next level. And then the final piece I want to bring up is these epic productions to build your domain dominance. For Vipul and his team, it's building comics. For us, I mentioned what that's for. Like, what is it within your organization, within your world, within your universe that you can do that is so dominant, it is so audacious? I'm not talking small here. I'm talking monster. something that will stretch you to the edge of your sanity, but you know it's possible for you to be able to do. What is that thing and how do you do it? Right? And I would love if anybody ever wants to come back on these streams and they're like, Brian, I heard what you said about epic productions and being able to get domain dominance through an epic production. By the way, he's going to do his own Golden Globes. He only touched a few of the things he's going to do. He'll do his own Golden Globes over in India, and he'll do a ton of other things that would be equally big. They would become the biggest name there. And once we get our live streaming show out, our intention is to do exactly the same thing in the same way that Tim Draper did it beautifully in his world. Be audacious, go out there and do something incredible and awesome. And so we've covered most of the questions. Like I said, David, I'll cover that afterwards. Anybody ever wants to ask something, you can always ask me at brian@expertdojo.com, and you can just ping me and let me know. If anybody would like, if you're an investor and you're thinking, I like what Mugafi are doing, they're already at a Series B round. Honestly, they oversubscribed their last round like really easily. This year, I don't even know that they're looking for money, but if you're an investor and you're thinking, I would like to invest in India, I would like to invest in there, and I have a reasonably big ticket size, just email me and I'll pass the information of Vipul over so that you can connect with them. And then otherwise, just keep coming back on the show. Remember, this is your Monday morning shot in the arm. So you get out of your armchair, you get moving, and you're like, okay, it is 9:15 somewhere in the world, probably in California. And in that place, Brian is saying, let's get moving, let's get selling, let's grow. And I would love if you come back next week and you tell and you share about things that have been working for you. All right, my friends, that is a wrap. Go out there, go forth, sell,